So I'm tracking through the book of First Samuel, and this morning, as I was reading through it, the Lord showed me something I feel like was going to help you. It certainly helped me. 1 Samuel 13, I read all the way to 15, but there was something at the tail end of chapter 13 that really spoke to me, and I believe it's going to help you. Just to set the context, Saul is the first king of Israel. He, at this point in the book of First Samuel, is still really new to being king. But even though he is still new to being king, he has already been told that the kingdom's going to be taken from him because he dishonored the Lord. He disobeyed the Lord. He did not uphold the Lord's command. And so God tells him through the prophet Samuel, this kingdom, had you obeyed the Lord, you would have gone on and on and on. Generations of your family would have sat in this throne. But because you disobeyed the Lord is not going to allow your family to partake in the kingship thus further. God has found a man after his own heart, is what 1 Samuel 13 says. But later on, here's what I want you to notice. We'll start reading in verse 19. It says this, "Now there was no blacksmith to be found throughout all the land of Israel. For the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make themselves swords or spears. But every one of the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen his plow, his mattocks, his axe, or his sickle." Skipping down to verse 22. "So on the day of the battle, there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people with Saul and Jonathan, but Saul and Jonathan, his son, had them." Meaning Saul and Jonathan have a sword and spear. Here's the thing. Obviously, Philistines, if you're familiar with scripture, they are not good guys. Never one time are Philistines mentioned in a good light. They are the enemy of the people of God. And notice what the enemy did. The enemy said, we're going to get rid of all the blacksmiths in the land of Israel so that Israel has to come to us if they want anything forged or sharpened. I don't know if you can kind of pick up what I'm putting down here, but the same spirit that was at work here in 1 Samuel 13 is at work in our world today. The enemy is making sure there are no spiritual blacksmiths among us. He's doing his best anyway, and he's honestly failing. But the enemy is working overtime to make sure there are no spiritual blacksmiths, people who can sharpen, people who can forge weapons of war, so that then the people of God have to go to the enemy of God in order to be sharpened. I don't know if you can realize this, but there are so many today, the people of God are going to the ideas, ideologies, philosophies, and ideas of the world in order to be sharpened. And here's why. It's because of what Paul says in one of his epistles, you have many teachers, but few fathers. We need fathers and mothers. Spiritual was what I'm saying. Spiritual fathers and mothers, the blacksmiths of our soul, if you will, who are forging and sharpening. We need spiritual mothers and fathers to rise up like never before. And it's no wonder a generation doesn't have the weapons they need in order to fight off the enemy, because the enemy has made sure there are no blacksmiths among us. And I really felt like this was a challenge. It's time for the blacksmiths to arise. The mothers and fathers, even those of us who are young. I'm nearly 30 years old, but I'm trying my best to stand up and begin to be someone who sharpens, forges others so that they may have the weapons of war that they need in this hour. But notice this, it said that though none of the people who were going to fight with Saul and Jonathan had spears and swords, Saul and Jonathan still had spears and swords. I feel like there's a double entendre here, a good way we can take this, and ultimately a rebuke that could come from this as well. Here's the exhortation and like the good side of this. Our fathers and mothers in the spirit still have the weapons of war they need. It's just time to share them. We've got to share them. Fathers and mothers, kings and priests in the spirit still have the weapons of war that they need, but it's time that we let them stand up and fight and go before us and ultimately pass down to us those things that they still have, even though we may not feel like we have what we need. That's the good side. Here is the more rebuke. It's time that the spiritual mothers and fathers stop hogging the weapons of war to themselves and start passing those down to those who are going to fight in the trenches alongside them and, hear me, after them. There are people who are dying, literally dying, with this reservoir of faith on the inside of them, but they never pass it on. Some of you, maybe you are watching this, you're later in life, up in years. I'm not acting like your time is right around the corner, but it's closer than some of ours. Do not hog all of the treasure. Do not hog all the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that has been given to you throughout years. Do not hog that to yourself. We've got to be people who pass that on to the next generation. It's time for the blacksmiths to arise, and it's time for the kings to begin to pass on to the people. Not just that the big man at the top, the elite among us, have these weapons and understand how to fight the enemy and take down the devil. But it's time that we begin to equip the saints, as the book of Ephesians says, to do the work of the ministry. There's this thing called the priesthood of the believer. Sometimes we think that we have to have a literal man of God or a priest, and I'm all for having spiritual headship and covering and authority, but we forget that there's the priesthood of the believer, that if you are a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, you have the same spirit that raised him from the dead. It's time that we begin to allow that to arise in us. It doesn't have to just be the big man at the top who can get things done. It's time that the people who have been entrusted to lead the army begin to give the people of God the weapons of war that they need. And listen to me, this is what our Bible says about our weapons. They are not carnal, but they are mighty in our God for the pulling down of strongholds, for the tearing down of every pretension that tries to set itself up against the knowledge of God. We need some spiritual blacksmiths to arise.